the We Knew the Moon podcast, where we love all things empath, spiritual, witchy, unexplained, and spooky. Hosted by me, Randa Safieh, co-founder of the Goddess Temple Twickenham, and joined by lots of special guests. Hi everyone, this is Dee from We Knew the Moon, and I am joined today for the next 2 episodes actually with my sister Randa Safieh-Angeles.
Hi everyone.
Randa's my younger sister by 1 year and 11 months. So sometimes she's 2
10.
years younger than me, and what in 10 months, sorry.
10 months. And there's always that time of year for 2 an we're only a year apart.
Yeah, and don't you like to remind me of it? So Randa works as an editor, a virtual assistant, a social media manager. You can find her on Facebook and Instagram, but all of the links are on her website. Do you want to give the website?
www.randasafieh.com.
Cool. I'll put that in the show notes. So check her out if you need her services. She's fantastic. I'm really excited because I picked this topic based off of an attempt at a holiday that you and I tried to have, like a little break. And the topic, I'm going to say the topic and you tell me if you remember the holiday.
Oh my God. Okay.
The topic is creepy hotels.
Oh, okay. I love this topic.
What am I referring to?
I remember it so vividly. It was an area called Saffron Walden, I think it's in Essex, and you booked us into the creepiest as fuck hotel. I couldn't even go to the toilet in the middle of the night. Like I literally was lying in bed at 3 a.m. thinking I need to go to the toilet and I can't.
Didn't you go home?
No, we were always there. No, that was camping.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I always go home early.
Was it the Buena Vista Social Club?
Yeah,
it was.
It was. We went to the Buena Vista Social Club. Amazing, love it. My favorite music. Love Buena Vista Social Club.
And it was at Audley End House, and I think they've restarted this, but they do during the summer these like amazing music events, and you kind of bring gazebos and picnics and stuff like that. It was so fun.
I loved it. Loved the music. But oh my God, the fucking bed and breakfast you booked us into, Dee, was the creepiest place I've ever been to. And then to make it creepier, I think it was on Most Haunted, that TV show, wasn't it? I don't even know if I knew this before we got there. I'm not even sure I would have.
No, we didn't. Okay. No, because we got there and they had a notice board where they had like the articles about them being.
Mm-hmm. They even had, like, in the room you stayed in, someone had hung themselves.
Yeah.
And they even had an alleged photograph of that on the wall in the lobby just to get you in the mood for your break.
I know. And to be clear, it was a very typical cute pub with rooms above it.
What was it?
It looked creepy and haunted, but like basically it was the Cross Keys Inn in Saffron Walden.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Saffron Walden, super cute. It was super cute.
Cute little village, cute market, really cute little village town. Really nice for a weekend away, but oh my God. Yeah. It was creepy as hell. And like the Most Haunted TV show had been there. There'd been multiple sightings. There was photographs on the walls of these alleged ghosts, like when you book in.
Yeah. So basically that pub is over 850 years old. So no wonder it's got some ghostesses, huh?
Yeah.
And the room that I was staying in was the Cromwell room, which was one of the most haunted rooms. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, like obviously a bit drunk because we'd had fun at the concert. And I was just lying in bed, like, don't open your eyes. Don't open your eyes. If you open your eyes, you'll see a ghost. And so basically it was a Civil War soldier during the Civil War, which I had to Google what years that was, but basically 1600s. I wish I'd known. Apparently he only appears once a year on Christmas Eve. So that would have reassured me a bit. But there was also, this is what I found even creepier. That was a ghost that hung himself in that room and that there was a picture of on the wall. But in that bathroom, there were reports of like a female spirit who would like try to actively drown you if you're taking a bath. God. Yeah, I did not take a bath.
Did we know that at the time?
No, we found out when we got there. So basically lots of reports of floorboards, floorboards creaking, and sightings of this Civil War soldier who had hung himself, this woman in the bathtub. The whole vibe was very eerie.
Yeah. And I remember speaking to the owners, I think it was the next day at breakfast, and they had like great food there. It was in a pub.
Yeah, it was a nice pub. If you like ghost trips, then I recommend it.
I mean, the place, it's a great place to go if you're a ghost enthusiast, because you'll have a cute little room, nice food, and you'll get to have some ghostly experiences. But I spoke to the owners, I remember, the next morning. They said that there had been a lot of ghost sightings there. Obviously, they had alleged evidence up on the walls, but that recently, like, there was 2 builders that had come to Saffron Walden to do some work there, and they literally just had to leave the hotel. They spent a few nights. They're like, no, can't stay here. Cannot go there if you want to be scared as hell.
And I remember reading the article on the notice board and about how the creepiest suite and the one with the most sightings was the Cromwell suite, and going, oh, no worries, because we're in the Rommel room. And then I realized it's because some of the letters had peeled off and we were in the Cromwell suite. I was like, oh.
The other freaky thing about it is your room had a 4-poster bed, didn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that's just creepy.
And it had like the beams and everything. Like,
the beams the guy hung himself from.
Yeah. It was creepy as fuck. But the theme of like creepy hotels comes up so much in film and books and whatever. And so I wanted to go into like a little bit why they have this creepy reputation and so forth. And, because we think about like Stephen King's The Shining, the Overlook Hotel, the Bates Motel. Motels have their own creepy vibe.
I don't think I've ever stayed in a bed and breakfast that wasn't creepy. I don't know if that's just a thing.
No, but they can be creepy for different reasons. Some of them are spooky creepy. Sometimes you've got like an innkeeper that's a bit like
sometimes it's just shitholes. You wish you booked the travel lodge instead.
Right. At least you know what you're getting. So basically, is there something unsettling about staying away from home in a place you don't know? Is it because you're placing a lot of trust in someone else, like the hotel keeper, the innkeeper, whatever? I mean, are there cameras? Are the beds clean? Has someone used the kettle to boil their underpants? Apparently, that's more common.
I'll be honest with you. This is I checked out after one night. I went to like a place called, oh God, I hope I'm not going to get in some sort of legal trouble for this. But I went to a sort of fake Center Parcs. We checked out after one night, and I said, look, when I handed the keys back, I said, I just, we're checking out early. She said, why? And I said, I just don't like anything about it. It was creepy. It was a caravan. It had like burgundy carpet, no heating. It was like something like a disgusting 80s throwback. Do you know what I mean? Awful. Everything about it was awful, creepy, weird, gross. And after that, I just thought, you know what? I'm just not going on holiday unless the lodgings are more comfortable and better and more luxurious than home. What a clean freak I am. I'm grossed out about getting in somebody else's sheets. I'm grossed out about, is the tap clean? Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't.
Is the shower clean? I wear flip-flops in the shower at hotels. And
in like self-catering, when you get an Airbnb, I won't use the kitchen because I'm grossed out by using, everyone's standards of hygiene are different. You just don't know what the hell happened there. Do you know what I mean?
To put it in context, listeners, my sister doesn't like anyone apart from her going in her own kitchen.
Oh God, there's a ban on it. They just can't.
Yeah.
You know what? Everyone has different standards of what they think is okay, and for what's normal for one person is like traumatizing for me.
Yeah.
So to put it bluntly and lightly, so when I go and stay at a hotel, it is going to be. It's going to be more comfortable and cleanly than my house.
The good thing is with things like TripAdvisor or whatever, you can get a much better idea about the genuine levels of hygiene, and people can upload photos. So that is super helpful. Yeah. But basically, I think the creepiness comes into the fact that we're vulnerable in these spaces because we are bathing, we're sleeping, we're getting intimate, etc. We're changing. But this is not a place that we have control over. We don't have control of the cleanliness, like I said, are there cameras, all that kind of stuff, the security. But also, we don't know who stayed there before. There's strong links of people using hotels for illegal activities
Mhm.
because obviously stuff they don't want to do at home, they don't want traced back to them. There's
I'm so excited, okay, about this episode.
I know, I knew you would be.
Mhm.
So like, for example, sex work, drugs trafficking, as well as affairs.
Yeah.
So there is this seedy underlying vibe of hotels in general, whether
And they
they're
really feature in so many creepy horror films, horror TV shows. Do you know what I mean? Hotels are kind of like anything dodgy often happens in a hotel.
Exactly. So I went onto the crime scene cleanup website. That's a thing. Links in the show notes. And the top 5 hotel crimes are, do you want to guess?
Drug deals, prostitution. I don't like that word prostitution. Sex work.
Sex work.
Sex work.
So basically, this is in order. The first one being the most common: burglaries and theft. It's not surprised.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in hotels, you're traveling with, less so these days, but you're traveling with cash, your electronics, and so forth. So, and I don't think most hotels are very difficult to break into. Plus, you know, now, okay, they have key cards and whatever, but, you know, like Airbnbs and all, you know, hotels that still have actual physical keys. How easy would it be?
For the safe. Do you know what I mean? Pay for the safe. It's worth it. Yeah,
pay for the safe. It's worth it. Okay, it's not like, you know, 100% guaranteed your safe won't be broken into, but it's much less.
Yeah, because you don't have your holiday ruined, you know, and that actually happens so often on holiday.
It's super common because people know there's lots of goodies in there. The next one is physical assault. I didn't read too much about why this is, but like, again, people are on holiday, people are drinking, people are getting doing drugs, you know, stuff that they wouldn't do so much back home, with less accountability, less attachment to the area, to the building. Do you know what I mean? So they're more likely to misbehave in a way they might not back home.
Yeah. True. That's why tourists act different.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Car break-ins.
Okay.
Prostitution. Let's go back to using sex work, and murder. But murder was the 5th one on this list, and it's by far in the minority.
Okay.
You'll be pleased to hear. Sadly, when a hotel-related murder does occur, sex work is generally involved in it. So quite often the victims are sex workers, basically. Yeah. And again, hotels are super convenient for bringing a sex worker back to.
You know what? When people bitch about OnlyFans, this is why OnlyFans exists.
Yeah. Why?
It actually protects the safety of women. Like,
yes.
You know what I mean? Like this is a debate about OnlyFans, not to take it in a different direction, but you know, it's one way that sex workers can guarantee their safety.
I think both of us will 100% agree that we need to protect sex workers because this is a profession that will exist until the end of time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of victim blaming that goes on in this, and it has to be. I don't know the answer to this. If not regulated more, it needs to be made more safe, because how often are sex workers the victims of crimes purely because they are sex workers and they are more vulnerable?
Exactly. So if anyone wants to be, you know, pious about OnlyFans, then think about this as the reason why it exists.
For sure. It's also really common, sadly, for people to commit suicide in hotels. And that can be 2 things: suicide tourism, which I didn't know was a thing, but basically checking into a nice hotel.
You keep uncovering these sinister, weird fucking trends.
I know. But basically it's people that know that they want to check out literally from life. And so they go on a last big hurrah, and they might check into a really nice hotel or any hotel and just like live it up because they know that they're not going to have to pay their bill on the way out. But also they might not do the suicide tourism thing so much, but they might book into a hotel to commit suicide because they don't want loved ones to find them.
Yeah.
And obviously hotels are very keen to keep all of this stuff on the down low. No one wants their hotel to be known for.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, the chances are you stayed in a room where one of the above has happened.
100%. 100%. So you want me to tell you about some creepy hotels?
And there I was worried about the bed bugs.
Yeah, no, I know. So I'm going to start with the Cecil Hotel in LA.
Okay. I watched this, I think in 2020 during one of the lockdowns, and it was
creepy.
Creepiest fucking thing. And
it
was so sad. It was so sad.
So sad.
It was so creepy that I remember
every part of it. I know.
But
listen.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me start.
Tell me the story. You can finish.
So what my sister is talking about is there was a Netflix documentary, which we highly recommend. I think it was just called the Cecil Hotel. Yeah. Now, I first got fascinated with this hotel before the documentary came out because it kept on coming up I listened to a lot of true crime podcasts, and it kept on coming up in different stories, in different tales about true crime.
A lot happened there.
Yeah.
A lot of baddies in the past.
Exactly. So I was super excited is not the right word, but some equivalent when the documentary came out on Netflix, and I highly recommend it. First, I should sort of say that it's not really a standard hotel. It's massive. It's like huge American style block, but part of it is a hotel, but part of it is for long-term residents and like affordable housing. It has 700 guest rooms. So that is massive.
It's a whole block.
Exactly. We'll post some pictures on like social media of all the different hotels I mentioned. It was built in 1924 by 3 hoteliers, William Banks Hanner, Charles L. Dix, and Robert H. Shops. It was designed in the sort of Beaux-Arts style. And you can tell.
It had a beautiful lobby.
It's meant. At the time, it was super opulent. It has this marble lobby, stained glass windows, etc. And it was thought to be a good investment. A lot of places were developing in this time. But 5 years later, the US was hit by the Great Depression. The hotel survived the Great Depression, but during the 40s and so forth, the area around it started to decline a lot. And it's the area known as Skid Row. So this area of downtown LA, again, the documentary covered a lot about this. It is terrifying how deprived this area is. But it's terrible because when we went to LA, we noticed this, right? You have like opulent, high profile place next to these areas that are so deprived. And we had that in Washington as well with Anacostia. So like, it's just shocking, the comparisons, and they're side by side. So basically, as of 2019, the population of this area of Skid Row was 4,700, but it contains up to 10,000 homeless people.
The documentary actually about Cecil Hotel really highlights a lot of issues about homelessness in the States,
the drug wars and so forth. In 2011, the hotel was renamed to Stay on Main. It was listed in some capacity, so it still has the Cecil Hotel boardings and advertisements on the outside. In 2021, it reopened as an affordable housing complex operated by the Skid Row Housing Trust. They clearly were like, we're not even going to try to be a hotel anymore. So I wanted to go into a little bit why this hotel had such a bad reputation. So I first Googled how many people have died at the Cecil, and the internet will tell you at least 18. These are the ones probably that kind of involved a bit of an investigation and so forth. Because like I said, a lot of hotels obviously try to keep it on the down low.
Oh God. Okay. Tell me.
I think it's also the nature of the hotel, the location, the nature of the crimes, and also some of the notorious guests that have increased the bad reputation of this hotel. For example, in the 80s and the 90s, 2 serial killers were staying there, but not just staying there. They were staying there during their killing sprees.
Yeah.
Jack Unterweger, who started off in Austria, I believe, and came over to the UK, to the US. He stayed there. He killed at least 9 people, part of it while he was staying at the Cecil. And Richard Ramirez, he killed at least 13 people and was also staying there during his killing spree. There's another documentary about him on Netflix, isn't there? Or maybe it was in the Cecil Hotel. No. It's a separate documentary. His arrest was spectacular. It was like the best case of like citizen's arrest.
Yes, it really was. Like it was.
He arrived back in LA, not realizing that he had been identified and named as a suspect for these killings that had been terrorizing the city. And so he arrives in LA and his pictures are everywhere on all the newsstands, everything. And he gets off at the bus station, I believe, and some people spot him and he literally gets chased down.
Yeah, it was like a flash mob citizen's arrest.
Yes. Amazing. most of the deaths at the Cecil were actually suicides or ruled as natural deaths, but I'm looking through them and I'm like, So in fact, the Cecil is often nicknamed the suicide.
God.
Morbid. So the first recorded death was in 1927, which was only 3 years after its opening. It was the suicide of Percy Ormond Cook, who shot himself in the head. But for example, there were 8 people that fell from the building.
Okay.
And only about half of those were ruled as suicide.
Okay.
Like that's a lot of people accidentally falling out of the window.
Yeah.
Right. And even if that was the case, why are you not putting in measures in place? You know how, like, horrible name, but a lot of hotels and office buildings have those suicide windows now so that you physically can't open them up in a way to kill yourself? Is it an accident hotspot? And like loads of the people that died of a natural death registered at the hotel under a false name, which again is like,
why?
So, you know, maybe they did that because they were coming to the area to pursue some illegal activities, sex workers, drugs, something like that. Or maybe they knew what they had in mind and maybe it wasn't an accident. I really don't know. But some of the people are still unidentified. So it's very hard to work that out without knowing who they were, you know, and looking at their backstory and their lives. You're going to hate this, but one of the people that fell from the building was a newborn baby. In 1944, Dorothy Jean Purcell was staying in the hotel, I believe, like long-term, because lots of people lived, I don't know if this is an American thing, long-term residents in hotels.
Well, I heard that it was kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. They explained it well in the documentary that like people who were homeless got sort of long-term accommodation there, didn't they?
Yeah.
A refuge, hostel type. Yeah, like that.
Exactly, because lots of the people were transients and so forth. She was staying there with her boyfriend, Ben Levin, who apparently was much older. I think she was only like 19. So anyways, she didn't even know she was pregnant. She went into labor and claimed later she didn't want to wake up her boyfriend.
I just don't like the story. Tell me.
I know. So she went to the bathroom. She gave birth to a boy. She thought he was dead. And so she threw him out the window. She was ruled not guilty by reason of insanity. Then in 1964, hotel staff found Pigeon Goldie Osgood, it's obviously a nickname. She was a retired telephone operator. They found her dead in her room. She'd been raped, stabbed, and beaten, and her room was turned over. She had the nickname Pigeon because she was always seen feeding the birds locally. Hours later, a guy called Jacques Erlinger was arrested as he was found covered in blood nearby, but he was cleared of the murder and no one else was ever charged. So, yeah. And then the documentary that we talk about a lot already, the Netflix documentary, mainly focused around the case of Alyssa Lamb. And
that's so sad because so many things went wrong there that could have prevented her death.
Yeah. So basically... And I always think about that British couple or the couple that lived in Britain.
Oh my God. So
Don't ruin.
Okay.
But there was a British couple and they were a prime example of how sometimes people were booking into the hotel, not knowing LA very well, seeing that it was like a downtown hotel conveniently located to a bunch of things and attractions that they probably wanted to see, and not realizing that it was in one of the most difficult areas of the whole city.
You know, I remember in the documentary they said that they had sort of rebranded as a hotel called Stay on Main with a separate entrance, and so people didn't realize it was the Cecil Hotel, even though it just had a different entrance, and the staff I think wore like different t-shirts or something.
Yes, exactly. So if you find a really good hotel deal, maybe you want to do a bit of research about why it's so cheap, is the advice that I took away from that. So basically, Alyssa Lamb, she was a Canadian student of Asian origin. Her naked body was found in a water tank on the roof of the hotel 3 weeks after she went missing in 2013. She was found by a maintenance staff member after complaints of low water pressure, brown water, and water that tasted and smelled funny. And this is where I remember the British couple that I don't remember, they weren't actually British, but they lived in Britain. They went over to LA for a holiday and they were saying that they had asked to move rooms because their water was coming out brown. They were bathing in it and all sorts. They moved to another room and I don't think it was much better. And then, you know, they find the body and they realize why. which is just like, I don't think I would recover from that.
No, no. Oh God. Do you know what? This is why I rinse with bottled water in dubious places, because let me tell you another thing. Sometimes that water is stagnant water from a water tank.
Yeah.
And you do not, sometimes there's dead pigeons floating up in those tanks.
Exactly.
So do with that what you will, but
yeah. No, I would recommend, regardless of where you're going, don't drink the water from the taps. The reason why this case captured people's attention is because she wasn't a usual resident. She had no suicidal tendencies before. She was young. She, I wouldn't say she was flush, but she had, you know what I mean? She could have stayed at a nicer hotel in a better area. But the main reason is because of the video. And you know what video I'm talking about.
Oh God.
And you can Google it, you can find it, you can see it on the documentary. But basically there's this video of her and she's acting really strangely. It's a video from a camera outside of a bank of elevators. Mm-hmm. And like at first glance, you think she's on drugs. Mm-hmm. And you also aren't sure whether at one point she's talking to someone off camera. Mm-hmm. Which is the other thing that raised questions. But she's basically going in and out of the lift. She goes in, she presses all the buttons for all the floors. Then she looks like she's hiding in the lift. Then she's peering out. Then she's waving her hands erratically. It's really creepy.
And you can construe so many theories watching that.
Yeah. So now they did a toxicology report when they found her. It's obviously really problematic because they did it so long after her death. And so it's not 100% reliable. She had bipolar disorder and they weren't entirely sure. They couldn't tell whether she had been taking her medication. They claimed that she had no alcohol or drugs in her system. But again, 3 weeks after with, being in a water tank, it can affect the findings. And so they ruled it as an accidental drowning. But, was that too easy? It wasn't, they went into it more detailed in documentary, but it wasn't as easy for just a regular guest to go up on the roof. She was like tiny. How did she get up there? How did she open the door without a key? It was meant to be locked. If it wasn't locked, then was that negligence somewhere? How did she get all the way up into the water tank? It's all so strange. So strange. And it wasn't even the last death at that hotel. There's been a couple more since. A couple more people weirdly accidentally falling out of their hotel windows. I don't know. I call bullshit on that.
In the documentary, I can't remember. Did they find water in her lungs or not?
I don't remember. But I think there was a massive problem with how long she'd been in the water tank.
Because I remember, one thing I do remember from the documentaries, they filmed an aerial view of police up on that roof, scoping out the roof, and nobody checked those water tanks.
I know. How do they not? A girl is missing. And when you see the water tanks, you're like, they're so fucking obvious.
They're huge. I mean, if you were thinking you're looking for a body, you're looking for where could a body be hidden?
Yeah, where? It
was,
I know. When that shocked me too. When I saw the water tanks, I was like, really? They missed those? They forgot to check in those?
That? Where do they do their training, these police officers? I mean, me and you would know to look in there.
I know that was one of the shocking moments as well. I was just like, how the hell? Because I knew she'd be found in the water tank. I don't know whether I thought maybe it's a more subtle water tank that you could overlook, but I mean, crazy. Another time the Cecil came up when I was listening to my Fairies podcast was the case of the Black Dahlia. Do you know this case?
No, but it sounds familiar.
So 1947, Elizabeth Short was found in LA. She was bisected. Her body was bisected, cut in half.
Oh, God.
Yeah, she was left in a very posed, displayed way in a residential area. No one could figure out how they'd left her there without being seen, why they'd killed her. There was lots of high-profile suspects. Go and listen to a podcast episode about the Black Dahlia. It's a really creepy case. Okay. But it was rumored that she'd been drinking at the Cecil bar regularly in the run-up to her murder and her unsolved murder. So was the Cecil part of that story? Who knows? So yeah, Cecil, I would you ever go and stay there? Would you visit it?
No.
Would you want to go see the outside of it? I'm trying to think. I don't even think I want to do that.
I don't want to even think about this place ever again because it is cursed. And when you watch that documentary, it just makes you so angry. The hotel manager was negligent. The police were negligent.
I know. Like you say, it was a whole chain of events.
Yeah, you know,
that
and
at any point, it felt like someone could have done something very slightly different and probably what their job entailed, and it might not have happened.
You know, and this poor girl was like, had a bright future. She was I remember she was a great writer, really smart.
Yeah.
You know,
horrifying. Yeah.
You know, the saddest part about it is that she was bipolar, and that's, I don't know what part that plays.
Yeah, I know. There's always the fear, isn't there, that it got dismissed.
Yeah, it depends what theory you believe, but it just makes that element of the story is really sad.
And I know for a while, because of the video where she's acting so strangely, it was assumed, okay, she's taken drugs. She's in a bad area that you can easily obtain drugs. I hope that didn't play a role, but you have to wonder. Mm-hmm. While I was doing my research for this episode, I found a website called Room Spook, the website that tracks hotel deaths.
Oh, God.
But do you want to hear about some slightly lesser known creepy hotels? This one's like kind of fun and then also depressing. The Chelsea Hotel in New York.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I really recommend a book, and I can't remember the author's names. It's called Please Kill Me, and it's like an oral history of punk, focusing around New York. It's so good.
Famous book.
I think it's two journalists or people that had been writing at the time who combine a bunch of interviews to tell the story. So it's interviews from people, the groupies, the musicians, the people in the music industry that were there at the time. It covers like David Bowie, the Sex Pistols, Iggy Pop. It's just like, it's fascinating. Blondie and Patti Smith. If you like those bands, it's really, really interesting. And the Chelsea is mentioned so many times in that book. I think it's the first time I properly became aware of it when I read this book as a teenager, because loads of people just stayed there. And again, it was kind of like the Cecil, where you have long-term residents. People like lived at these hotels, right? And it was very transient lifestyle. I kind of feel like people were a little bit of detached. Again, like with the Cecil, it's not really their home. They care less. They can behave in ways they might not in their own home. In their own
this
city.
A fancy hotel?
Again, like the Cecil, it started off being super fancy, right?
Okay.
So it was built in 1883, between 1883 and 1885. So it has a long history. At the time, it was the tallest building.
Okay.
When it was built. And it's home over the years to many writers, musicians, artists, actors, etc. So it had long-term residents as well. And it was known for its amazing artwork and the decor. So you can imagine why like actors, musicians, etc. would be really interested in these long-term hotel stays, because they're going on tour a lot. They're staying in New York for X amount of time because they're filming, whatever. So here are some of the people that stayed there. Okay. Dylan Thomas, who actually died there, but of natural causes. Sid Vicious and Nancy Spudgeon, who I will talk to you about later. Arthur Miller, who actually wrote a short piece called The Chelsea Effect about living in that hotel. So I'm going to go and read that.
Marilyn Monroe's husband, wasn't it?
Marilyn Monroe's husband, exactly.
Yeah.
Mark Twain, Tennessee Williams, Jack Kerouac, William S. Burroughs, Dennis Hopper, Eddie Izzard, Uma Thurman, Jane Fonda, Edie Sedgwick, and many of Andy Warhol's crowd. Andy Warhol and Paul Morrissey directed Chelsea Girls in 1966, which was about his factory regulars and their lives at this hotel. Grateful Dead, Nico, Patti Smith, Jim Morrison, Iggy Pop, Jeff Beck, Bob Dylan, Dee Dee Ramone, Alice Cooper, Edith Piaf, Marianne Faithfull, Cher, Joni Mitchell, Bette Midler, Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix, Madonna in the early 1990s, Leonard Cohen, Janis Joplin, and like so many more. So you can imagine you'd want to stay there, right? If you were in that, scene.
That guest list, you think you're in good company there,
right? But most of these people on this list are also troubled. Most of them did not have happy endings, shall we say. So you can imagine the vibe there of a bunch of people that are transient, unsettled, a lot of drug use, a lot of drinking. So what is spooky about this hotel? Because it sounds kind of awesome. Some of the nicknames for this hotel were like the cauldron of creativity and the last outpost of Bohemia. which to be honest, they make me want to go there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So the Chelsea Hotel is a national and a state landmark building and the second most haunted place in New York City. The most haunted being the New York Public Library, which I think is the one that's in Ghostbusters. One sad story is the story of Mary. So Mary was a survivor of the Titanic, but she lost her husband during the Titanic sinking. And so when she arrived in New York, which is where the Titanic was heading, she became distraught. She was staying at the Chelsea Hotel. She became distraught and committed suicide in the hotel. She hung herself in her room on the 5th floor. And she's often seen in the hallways and in guest mirrors. I've put here in my notes, I would do a shit.
Oh my God. Do
you
know what else creeps me out about hotels? One of the scariest films, actually the scariest film, worse than The Sixth Sense, is, I can't remember what it was called, but it was called Hotel Room Number something or other. And it had John Cusack in it. It was creepy. Watch it.
Yes, I know the one.
Or something, and I think it's just him in a hotel room. Just him.
Yeah.
As fuck. I mean, I couldn't sleep for so long. I was like scared shitless.
But it plays on all of our fears of hotels. We all have them to some extent, don't we?
So, if The Shining wasn't bad enough, if you want to be more creeped out about hotels, watch that film. Can't remember its exact name.
Yeah. Then it's got another resident ghost, Nadia. She is known as the severed hand ghost. She defenestrated herself. Sorry, I should have used that word earlier. I love an opportunity to use the word defenestration, which means throwing yourself out of a window. She defenestrated herself in 1922. But before she did this, she cut her right hand off using industrial scissors for cutting bolts of cloth.
Oh my God. Why did she do that?
They don't even know if it's on purpose or not. But it basically hurt so much that she threw herself out the window.
Oh my God. How do they know that's the reason she did that?
Well, so let me tell you a bit of her backstory. Okay. She'd grown up in the hotel. She was the daughter of a wealthy silk merchant. So this was at a time when the hotel was fancy pants. She wanted to be an artist, but ran away and got married in her teens to someone that her parents didn't approve of. And soon after, she found herself with an alcoholic husband and 2 kids. She begged her father to let her and her family come back to the hotel and stay there. And the condition was that Nadia did all the cleaning, did some sewing work for her dad's company, and cleaned her mother's underwear, which was made more difficult and challenging because her mother was incontinent. So Nadia, rich kid, anyways, I think most people would struggle with this. She struggled. And so that's why she did what she did. I don't know whether she was trying to cut off her hand to get out of doing this manual labor and then killed herself because it was so unbearable. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't think that would not hurt a fuck ton. But she's apparently often seen floating around outside the windows.
Oh God. Do you know, that's another one of my fears. I'm afraid something's to look out the window.
When it's dark outside? Because I think of like the Bodyguard when they're staying in that house and she sees I
remember the scene. I remember
the reflections of the people trying to kill her outside in the forest. I know. Okay, then there's also at the Chelsea Hotel possibly the most annoying ghost I've read about, Larry the hipster ghost.
Okay.
So you already hate him. Apparently he never stops talking. He interrupts all the other ghosts and he's really anxious to talk, which just sounds like a typical hipster, right? But perhaps the most famous and like one of the most creepy stories is that of Sid and Nancy, as I mentioned. There's a great film based on their lives and their story with Gary Oldman in 1986 and Chloe Webb. But basically, Sid Vicious was the bassist of the Sex Pistols. Sex Pistols were a groundbreaking band, lots of drugs and sex and whatever. And one thing I could not stand from that book, Please Kill Me, they talk about all the groupies. The groupies and the band seem to have like these great relationships. But a lot of times the groupies were like fucking 14 years old.
I know. Do you know what?
They were like runaways or whatever. Sometimes the parents were okay with them.
I'm so glad that in this day and age, things like that aren't okay anymore because it's really in really recent history that, this wasn't as fun as it is now.
And like people you didn't expect had their 14-year-old groupies. Sid Vicious was the bassist in the Sex Pistols. They actually only met like a year or so before her death. I don't know why I thought they had been going out for much longer, but I suppose in that lifestyle, a year is quite a long time. She was already a heroin addict, and she was one of the band's groupies.
Mm-hmm.
Sex Pistols are obviously from Britain, from the UK, and she was American. So she actually came to London to follow the band around. They had a drug-fueled, super toxic, super destructive relationship. Lots of people believe that Nancy's the one that got Sid into heroin, or at least got him doing it regularly. I would argue that he was in that lifestyle anyways. I mean, Sid's own mother was a heroin addict, so I don't know how fair that is. It may be fair. It might be a little bit harsh on Nancy.
Yeah.
You know, people were always obsessed about whether there's someone's trying to Yoko a band. Yeah. So in January 1978, the band breaks up, and Nancy is thought to be a major contributing factor because she caused a lot of arguments between the band members. And then in October 1978, so the same year, police were called to the Chelsea Hotel and found Nancy dead. They took Sid into custody, and it turned out that Sid and Nancy had held a party the night before. Sid was trying to sort of reactivate a music career with Nancy as his manager. It wasn't going that well. Apparently they fought when Sid said he was going to quit doing drugs and go back to the UK and restart his life. Obviously, we only have Sid's words. We don't know what actually happened there, but this is what he's reported. They fought. She attacked him, he says. He ended up stabbing her after she apparently attacked him. It's unclear whether the stabbing was intentional or whatever, but he claims it was very much in self-defense. Then, this is the weird thing, they just fall asleep.
That's the thing. I actually forgot the details of the story, but I do remember that they were both in bed. She was stabbed. He wasn't.
Yeah.
And I remember the story as he woke up and she was next to him dead. But
yeah, so basically, and you know, they'd had a party. I'm going to presume that there was drugs and or alcohol involved, and your reactions are impaired. Your pain threshold is affected. So maybe it genuinely didn't hurt her that much. She didn't realize how serious it was. They didn't want to go to the police or the hospital because of the state they were in. Who knows, right? Who knows? But basically, apparently she wakes up during the night, she stumbles into the bathroom and she dies. So presumably she bled out. Sid himself died of a heroin overdose later, almost immediately after coming out of a state-enforced rehab. So he actually died in February 1979, which is like 4 months after she died. So really quick succession, which I think sensationalized the story even more. The band break up, then Nancy's found dead, then he dies, you know?
No.
He didn't go to prison. He went to rehab.
Why didn't they send him to prison? Why just rehab?
I don't know. I didn't read about the court case too much. So yeah, that definitely is added to the sort of lore of the Chelsea Hotel. It gives me the willies.
Is that room popular then?
Oh, I don't know. Okay. I don't know. I imagine it would be.
Because there are some twisted people that like that kind of tourism, huh?
Yeah. Okay, the next hotel on our tour, the Hotel del Coronado in California.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, so I tried to find you some more obscure ones. Kate Morgan stayed at this hotel in 1892. So again, old hotel, especially by US standards, right? And she is still there, but she's now not a guest, but a resident ghost. She arrived age 24 on Thanksgiving Day on her own, which in 1892 must have been a little bit unusual. She was said to be waiting for a man that didn't show. So after 5 days, she killed herself. She was unidentified at the time by the police. And so she was known in the press as the beautiful stranger. She's like, are you sexualizing her? I don't know. Finally, they found out who she was and that she was married, but she was separated from her husband. She had been waiting for her partner. So she was a domestic in a wealthy household in LA. She traveled by train to this hotel with a man because other passengers on the train noted her on this train and arguing with the man. He then walked away from her and abandoned her mid-journey, which I was like, I'm not really entirely sure how you do that on a train. Must have been at a station or something. But she clearly went on to the hotel thinking he'll turn up. We just had a stupid argument. And it sounds like he just turned around and went home. And when she realized that, she shot herself in the head, which confused me even more because I was like, how does a domestic have guns in the States? Like, what the fuck? Most of the ghostly activity at this hotel is in her third room floor. They have like reports of flickering lights, TVs on and off, cold air, sounds, smells, doors opening, closing, footsteps, like all of the things that you associate with hauntings, I suppose. And there's also been sightings of Kate in the hotel hallways and along the seashore, and also in the resort gift shop. Apparently, she's very active there. So yeah, that was a bit of a morbid story for you. The Driskill Hotel in Austin, Texas, was quite interesting because one of the ghosts is quite recent. Okay. So this hotel, the Driskill Hotel, was named after the guy who bought the land, Jesse Driskill, in 1884. And 2 years later, he opened his hotel on the land. It was all paid for with like dubiously sourced money. So already there's like rumors and so forth. President Lyndon Johnson actually had his first date with his wife there. And apparently he is seen haunting the hotel sometimes. And Jesse Driskill apparently himself haunts the hotel sometimes. Because he basically soon lost all his money on fun times and gambling. And almost as soon as the hotel opened up, he lost it in a game of poker. I didn't even think that really happened.
Do you remember when we were in Vegas and there were grown men crying at the poker tables because God knows how much they gambled away?
It's crazy. When you realize the chips they're throwing in are like $1,000 or whatever, it's just like, what? So Jesse Driskill killed himself and is often seen looking out the window, smoking a cigar.
That's what I would be doing.
Right? So one of the ghosts is much more recent. She comes from the 1990s, which feels like 5 minutes ago, but it's actually like 40 years ago. But anyways, she was jilted at the altar, a bride. She checked into the hotel. I'm not entirely sure if the hotel was like where she was going to stay the night of her wedding or whether it was her honeymoon hotel or whether she booked it after she was jilted. I didn't get that from the story. But she checked in. She spent over $40,000 on a shopping spree on food and all sorts. And then on the third day, she shot herself in the head.
Okay.
So to this day, a ghost is spotted in the hallways and in her room with shopping bags. So
you know what? I wonder whether she knew she was going to do that, whether that was place she was going for a honeymoon, whether she, like, what made her stay for 3 days and then shoot herself, whether that was always part of the plan. Like, I'm going to have a big bend, spend loads of money.
Was it a suicide holiday?
Yeah. Or whether she just kind of hoped that the wedding might go ahead or that she'd get back with that guy and then realized she wasn't. I don't know.
I don't know.
3 days of living it up and then committing suicide.
This hotel also has the creepiest kind of ghost, a child ghost.
Oh, God. Okay.
A child fell down the stairs and died, but it can often be heard giggling in the night, which is probably the creepiest of the ghost stories.
It is saddest and creepiest.
So then I wanted to end this final hotel on our tour in London because we are based.
Oh, what have we got here?
The Langham Hotel.
The what? The fancy one?
Yeah. What? So I myself had a very horrific experience here.
God. Why don't I know about this? Okay, tell me.
But it was with a living creature.
Oh.
It was a client meeting with a really rude, misogynistic, sleazy client in the hotel lobby or one of the bars. So this hotel, super fancy. It's on like Hyde Park, isn't it? I think so, yeah. It opened in 1865. It's got 500 suites, so it's huge.
The big white, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. There are a couple resident ghosts. There's a German prince who threw himself out of the window just before World War I. So I don't know if it was related to World War I. There's a ghostly butler on the third floor, which I think is adorable. He's like, I'm just going to carry on with my butler duties.
You know what? In our old building, okay, like part of the reason I think I've always been afraid of ghosts, but also fascinated. But in our old building, so for listeners, me and Dee, we used to live in the same block of flats. I was on the ground floor, Deanna was on the top floor. And it had the creepiest as fuck. What was it called? Atrium. So it was like a hollow building.
It looked very much like a Mexican hotel, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Because it had a weird color scheme of like blue and terracotta and yellow.
Yeah.
And it had an opening Yeah, the atrium. It was covered with a glass roof, and all of our rooms were off of, all of our flats were off of this balconies.
Creepy as fuck. The atrium was dark. The lifts were, the elevators that were like glass. So I was scared shitless. Like going from
I used to have to bring you downstairs. If you'd come up.
Or you'd have to send someone to escort me because I was scared.
Or what we'd often do is I would bring you to the lift.
Yeah.
And Jim would have to wait for you at the bottom.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, A, I'm a fraidy cat, but B, it was that creepy. And it was documented in books that there was like a ghost in the building because it was a warehouse for the Army and Navy. And there was one of the security guards or one of the wardens had died, and they were reporting. So it was that the porter or warden, the security guy who was haunting it. Apparently we actually never saw anything, but at night with those glass lifts going down in a pitch black or like dark atrium was creepy as fuck. As fuck.
No, it really was.
Yeah.
So back to the Langham. There's another ghost. This one would freak me out. I mean, any ghost, to be honest. I've never seen a ghost. Have you?
No, not that I'm aware of, but you know what?
I've definitely been in environments where I've been creeped out, but I don't feel like I've ever seen a ghost.
No.
And I think any ghost would scare the shit out of me, regardless.
I'm not sure I've even felt a presence, to be fair.
No, me neither. Because a lot of times I think it's my own imagination, but and so I don't know where I stand on whether they exist or not. But like I said, if I ever saw anything like this guy, a ghost who wanders the hallways with a massive wound in his face, like a gunshot. That would scare the shit out of me, because that's like some kind of zombie ghost look. And then there's also apparently reports of Napoleon himself in the basement. Why not? Room 333 is the most haunted room. Apparently only in the month of October, a Victorian dressed man appears. There's also rumors that a doctor killed his new wife in that room and then killed himself. There's also reports, I found this really interesting, BBC reporters. So apparently the BBC used to own the Langham. So probably to put up its own reporters or people it's interviewing, whatever. But BBC reporters and England cricket team members, England cricketers, reported strange sightings. So these are kind of, I don't know about cricketers, but you kind of assume that they're more of like rational people. There's cases of reporters and cricketers refusing to stay at the hotel. Basically, every single one of these hotels that I've mentioned has appeared on either Most Haunted or Ghost Adventures or.
But you know what? I actually almost find the most fascinating because it's such a posh hotel. And I kind of don't, and the way it looks, it's so fancy. It's so typical like London, isn't it? In its architecture. And it's not like a really old sort of Tudor building or like a little creepy old rickety B&B.
It's not a creepy looking building, exactly. But I think the difference between the Langham and the Cecil and the Chelsea, they were also super fancy hotels at the time. So you imagine that they didn't start off being creepy, but maybe because of the reputation, maybe because of the area, maybe because of a bunch of other stuff, that the Great Depression, whatever, they have gone into decline, which adds to their creepiness, but also adds to the nature of their guests and the activities that their guests get involved in. That compounds the creepiness, I think.
Yeah, there is something extra creepy about what was once a really beautiful place that is now run down.
That falls into disrepair, yeah. You think, what's the story here? People must have died.
Yeah, there's an added element of spookiness there.
Yeah.
The Langham fascinates me because it's like just a couple of miles from where we live.
We should go there for afternoon tea. I would do that.
Because we're so familiar. It's a hotel. We are so familiar. How many times did we drive past it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's so iconic and it doesn't look creepy and it's so local.
But I think they managed to ward off the creepy vibes by still being very active and very prominent and expensive hotel, for want of a better word, right? Like they can.
I would never associate that reputation with it.
Yeah, exactly. But apparently one of the most haunted hotels in the UK.
Wow. Because it's like that creepy little place in Saffron Walden that scares me. But actually,
the minute you look at it, you're like, that is fucking haunted.
Yeah.
100% that's haunted.
Yeah. But the Langham, that's the kind of place where I think, yeah, I'd like to stay there. That place, I'll be safe. Their water will be clean.
So the long and the short of it is, you may or may not believe in ghosts, but there's definitely a lot of creepy shit whether it's paranormal or not, that goes on in hotels.
And there's always something creepy about hotels. And I don't know if it's because of The Shining, but like there's always something creepy about like hotel hallways, the long corridors. We're just expecting those two twins to pop up, you know?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
There's something creepy about hotels anyway, but a haunted one is like a double creepy thing.
And even if you don't believe in ghosts or feel any kind of presence or whatever, just knowing that your hotel room has almost 100% had some kind of, at the very least, burglary, unhygienic experience happening. I always worry about like what stains are on the headboards, cushions.
What you said about like the vulnerability, a factor when you're staying in a hotel.
Yeah, that's it. And that's what good horror films play on, isn't it?
Yeah.
They make it relatable by playing on the vulnerability that we all feel.
Even just like Psycho, you know, the film Psycho, the Bates Motel, having a shower in a place that's not your own.
Where anyone could have a key. You don't know whether it's actually genuinely be cleaned or, And do not even get me started on Airbnbs. For a start, it's even less regulated, monitored, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, there's 100% guaranteed a camera in there somewhere. Also, my issue, I'll tell you my issue with Airbnbs, the fucking cleaning fees and the list of chores, like they're no longer, I remember a time when it was much cheaper than staying in a hotel, and it was really like a nice way to stay in a place that would be really expensive to stay in if it was a hotel. But now they give you like a whole long list of chores to do before checkout. And then on top of that, they charge you like £100 for cleaning. And you're like, why am I paying for cleaning?
Airbnb is not a thing I can do.
It's your worst nightmare, isn't it? I'd rather go camping.
Me too. Nature is going to be cleaner than like, and I'm sure there's some really good Airbnbs, but like you said, it's unregulated.
Tell us if you've had any creepy experiences. Send us an email. We'd love to hear if you've had any creepy, spooky, scary experiences. So again, little plug for TripAdvisor, really, really good place to check out what genuine travelers have said about the place. Sometimes there's quite funny exchanges. I won't say you should ever base anything off of like a single bad review or a couple, because some people are assholes and
or even a good review, to be fair, because I booked this because of a good review. So really, you know, if somebody tells you that they like a place, still check it out, because your idea of what's comfortable for you could be very different, you know?
I always weigh up how many positive reviews they have versus specifically what the negative reviews say. Because sometimes someone's negative review is like, not that bad, like
it's something that wouldn't bother you. It's something that wouldn't bother you.
Or you can tell from the way the review is written, actually you were the asshole in that scenario.
Yeah, true. And the other thing that I do, which is go on Street View and check out the area.
Check out the area. And what I love about TripAdvisor as well is all the uploads of photos from the travelers as well, because that obviously is a really good indicator.
But Street will show you really what the area looks like around it, how close you actually are to the beach and the facilities.
Definitely check, research. Maybe look on the spook rooms if you want to see if your hotel's had any recent murders or deaths. Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to have you back next time.
Can't wait. Mwah, mwah. Bye, everyone.
Bye. We Know the Moon is the official podcast for the Goddess Temple Twickenham. Don't forget, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. You can also visit our website, weknowthemoon.co.uk, for all of our upcoming events and merch. If you sign up for any amount on our Patreon, you'll be able to watch our video recordings of our podcast from season 4 onwards, with all the raw bits. That usually means more swearing. Thanks for listening.